Hello, everybody, and welcome to What the Hell Should I Watch? I'm Steve Stebbing. This is the rundown of everything I'm watching, which may become something that you're watching, and we come at you every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time on stevestebbing.ca. And let's get the elephant in the room out of the way right now. Chloe is taking a hiatus from the show for an indefinite time. Hopefully she will return later in the future. But for right now, we're back to being just me. And we got an interesting show for you this week as The Rock's Delusions are on the big screen for everyone to check out, and in IMAX for other people to check out. And he somehow has the top two of the top five of the box office right now, which is, I guess, a win for him. I'll get into that in a second. Another animated film that made me cry, as well as a film on Blu-ray that kicked off everything for Dreamworks Studios back in 1997. All this and much more. So we're gonna get to that thing in your eyeballs. Yes, fresh for your eyeballs. What I was just mentioning, The Rock, and he wants to bring some Yuletide cheer this year with Red One. After Santa Claus is kidnapped, the North Pole's head of security must team up with the world's most infamous bounty hunter in a globe-trotting, action-packed mission to save Christmas. Starring Dwayne Johnson, Chris Evans, Lucy Liu, and J.K. Simmons. Directed by Jake Kasdan. And look, once you have The Rock reteaming with the guy that did the Jumanji movies, The Next Level and Welcome to the Jungle, the Jumanji reboot films, Jake Kasdan, I was like, those are fun films. I still contest that those are fun films, if not diminishing returns in the second film. But I thought with this team up, they could make something more interesting. And then I saw that trailer and I went, woof. And honestly, during the movie, I actively felt my time being wasted by this almost 2-hour film, which has some just absolutely ridiculous, stupid moments. They clear logic gaffes by just adding in lines of dialogue here and there. And I really honestly felt bad for Chris Evans because J.K. Simmons has signed up for some real crap before. Lucy Liu has done some crap as well. I mean, Ballistics, X versus Sever for one. And I know Chris Evans has done some not great movies, but I still really enjoy him a lot. And the fact that The Rock claimed to have gone to the IMAX theater, sat in Christopher Nolan's seat in IMAX and watched Oppenheimer, and said that Red One on the IMAX screen could be game over. I still don't know what he meant by that. This movie is so dumb and so bad that it is so easily digestible that you kind of forget about it once you're out of it. And I don't know, there's something self-serious about The Rock in this movie that is so over the top and really tough to handle. So I'm not being a Christmas Grinch on this movie. I just say it's not good, and there are better Christmas movies to check out. And I know that there's a Die Hard reference in this movie, and it was too little too late by the time it actually happened. So big skip on this one. All right, let's move on to stuff that you can now put into your own Blu-ray player. That's right, on the Blue this week. And last week I talked about Memoir of a Snail, or was it a couple of weeks ago? I talked about Memoir of a Snail that absolutely devastated me emotionally. So let's move on to another film that devastated me emotionally. This is The Wild Robot. After a shipwreck, an intelligent robot called Roz is stranded on an uninhabited island. To survive the harsh environment, Roz bonds with the island's animals and cares for an orphan baby goose. Featuring the voices of Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Kit Connor, Bill Nighy, Stephanie Sue, Mark Hamill, Catherine O'Hara, Matt Berry, and Ving Rhames. Written and directed by Chris Sanders. And Chris Sanders is the guy behind How to Train Your Dragon. And let's just preface it, but that even the trailer for this made me want to weep openly. And there's something about how emotionally wrapped that this film gets you almost immediately, that I felt the emotions bubbling at the surface for like the whole film. And when I initially saw the trailer, I thought that it would be mostly a silent film, but clearly there is a voice cast, there is dialogue in this one, but it's really, really great how Roz makes the dialogue happen. And it's like one of my favorite solves for this in a long time. And the animation style of this film is just absolutely gorgeous. There's just an incredible texture to it. And I think this, above anything like Inside Out 2 or anything more commercial, is hopefully the front runner for any best animated films. I think Flow and Memoir of a Snail should be in that category as well. Snail, just for the simple fact that Adam Elliott spent 8 years to make that project. But there's something so infinitely rewatchable about Wild Robot that I feel it's something that I can engage in over and over again. Same with Flow, just the flow of the film makes it infinitely watchable again. Memoir, I feel like it's impressive, but I don't feel like it has the rewatch value. Still, in the end, better than Inside Out 2 in my opinion, but I see Inside Out 2 being one of the ones that are going to be nominated for the big awards. I just don't think it should win. It's a good film. I just don't think it should win. And I think that The Wild Robot is infinitely better. All right, let's move on to the film that kicked everything off for Dreamworks back in 1997. This was their first big film. It was this, and then the animation one was Ants. But this was to be their anchor of starting on a high. Didn't exactly go that way. This is The Peacemaker. A U.S. Army colonel and a civilian woman supervising him must track down stolen Russian nuclear weapons before they're used by terrorists. Starring George Clooney, Nicole Kidman, and Armin Mueller-Stahl. Directed by Mimi Leder. This is the Mimi Leder film that predates Deep Impact, which she made in like conjecture or parallel to Armageddon. But this was supposed to be a big launcher for George Clooney after From Dusk Till Dawn and Out of Sight. And DreamWorks was putting everything behind it. There's a big budget on this one. The film just feels so late 1990s, maybe mid 1990s, where your hero is kind of like a cantankerous asshole that talks down to his superior, which is Nicole Kidman, and just kills people like he's got diplomatic immunity everywhere. There's just some ridiculous stuff in this movie. And then there's a completely wacky shack, like third act of like tension that is made even more ridiculous it feels like they keep blowing protocol out the window. Like it doesn't matter over and over again. Like who cares? And it's baffling. Rewatching it now, because I think I remember seeing it roughly a time around release, and I would have been just around the end of high school at that point, so definitely a different Steve at that time. But rewatching it now, Nicole Kidman looks great. George Clooney has definitely an action hero look to him, but there's just, the movie is so humdrum that it really doesn't pull it off in any sort of a great way. So it's kind of a letdown. But the Blu-ray looks really great. That's basically all I can say on that one. Let's move on to a higher quality of video and sound, but an older film. This one is an absolute classic, and it's part of me digging into some classics and getting my bearings in eras that I just never watched before. This is The Lady from Shanghai. Fascinated by gorgeous Mrs. Bannister, Seaman Michael O'Hara joins a bizarre yachting cruise and ends up mired in a complex murder plot, starring Rita Hayworth, Orson Welles, Everett Sloane, and Glenn Anders. Written and directed by Orson Welles. Yeah, I'm immature and laugh at the word seaman, but it's funny. But besides F is for Fake and Citizen Kane and War of the Worlds, there is a limited amount of Orson Welles stuff that I have seen, aside from his voicing of Unicron in the Transformers movie. That doesn't count. Or his Jolly Green Giant Peas commercial. That's just more of a joke, if anything. But this film is film noir down to the core, done by a filmmaker that really understood the craft beyond the staples of what we knew it was. There's depth to character, there's depth to mystery, and then it also kind of blends in like a courtroom procedural for like the last, I would say like the middle third of the film, and a bit of the third act is a courtroom drama. But there is a funhouse scene in the third act that I think is so well executed and just shows how ahead of his time Orson Welles was in everything he did. He's kind of the template for a lot of filmmaking and a lot of filmmakers that came out of it, and ones that are continuously inspired by his work. Rita Hayworth was a femme fatale knockout, without a doubt. I understand the Shawshank Redemption obsession with it, the Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, the poster, all of it. I understand it all now. And the transfer for 4K, it looks really, really pristine. They did a really great job to put this one together. And there's some really great special features on this one with Peter Bogdanovich, the late Peter Bogdanovich, which I think is really interesting, whose star tarnished a little bit to me when I read some excerpts out of Cher's book. Apparently she didn't like him very much, and he wasn't a very nice guy to her on the set of Mask. But I am just I'm digressing so much from the lady from Shanghai. For the people that are embedded in classics, they know this film. But if you are just wanting to see the stepping stones of what made film noir what it is, I think you need to watch The Lady from Shanghai. Alrighty, so let's move on to things that you can stream into your home right now. Yes, the streaming pile. And I had somebody reach out to me, Katja, reach out to me and say, hey, we have this movie streaming on Crave right now, and I'd really, really like you and Chloe to take a look at it and bring it to the show. And I said, sure. Why not? No hesitation. Why not? And I'm glad that I managed to actually crush the documentary into my head in the meantime, so I can actually talk about it. This film is called Wilfred Buck. An elderly member of the Indigenous Cree people of Canada is our spiritual guide in a film that, like its charismatic protagonist, moves between past and present and between Earth and the stars to overcome the ghosts of colonization. Written and directed by Lisa Jackson. And of course, this is about the titular character, Wilfred Buck, who, like it says, he is a member of the Cree people. And he's also an astronomer. And uses astronomy, including a inflatable dome, which he brings people in to illustrate his points. Uses it to tell the history of his people, the history of reading the skies. But this movie is also a conduit to like kind of a docudrama reenactment style of telling his upbringing and everything that he's overcome, which includes family members dying, family members abandoning him being basically left to his own devices, falling into alcoholism and drugs, conquering that addiction, coming out of it with something positive and something that he travels with and is constantly requested and asked for. And I think Wilfred is a fascinating individual to behold just through what the film's talking about. And I know that the film is really only kind of a 10th or 25th of what Wilfred Buck actually is as a human being. But it definitely made me more interested in the person himself. And without prodding, thank you, Katja, I probably wouldn't have checked this one out. So every now and then you get a nudge and you're like, okay, fine, I will check it out. And it's Canadian and it's Indigenous, and I think this kind of stuff needs to be celebrated, and it's something very easily obtainable because it is available on Crave. All right, let's move on to a show that is entering its second season, and more mystery, more intrigue, and my favorite stuff, more sci-fi. This is Silo. Men and women live in a giant silo underground with several regulations which they believe are in place to protect them from the toxic and ruined world on the surface. Starring Rebecca Ferguson, Rashida Jones, David Oyelowo, Common, Tim Robbins, Harriet Walter, Avi Nash, Rick Gomez, Chinaza Uche, Shane McRae, Remy Milner, Alexandria Riley, Claire Perkins, and Billy Postlethwaite. Created by Graham Yost, available on Apple TV+. Silo, I am not quite fully caught up on the second season yet, but I really, really dig this show. I love how close it keeps the cards to the chest, because humans been living in this silo system for so long that they've forgotten exactly the ramifications of what outside is like, and if they can explore it, to the point that some people lose their minds and demand to go outside and are immediately ejected into the outside world, where they appear to fall down and die. But is this all a lie? Is this a projection? Is there somebody keeping the secret from all the people of the silo? And can the world be reclaimed? And I mean, Rebecca Ferguson being kind of like a main of this one was the immediate sell to me. I've been a fan of hers ever since she debuted in, I think it was Rogue Nation. She debuted in the Mission Impossible series, and I've loved her ever since. And of course, her role in the Dune series, especially Dune Part 2, which is arguably largely Rebecca Ferguson's movie, because she's just incredible in the fact that nobody's speaking enough about her, and it kind of bugs me. But I love what she brings to character, for sure. And David Oyelowo is one of those underrated actors. I think he was Academy Award nominated for Selma, but he never seems to get the praise that he should get. And I really like him. And of course, Tim Robbins is phenomenal. But if you're looking for a good sci-fi that keeps you on the edge of your seat, it almost creates debates with people that are also watching it, I really, really recommend this one, especially if you haven't checked it out before and you're just sight unseen need something. Silo is a good bet. All right, let's move on to one that is on a streaming service that you have to pay more for on top of another streaming service. It bugs me, clearly. But the show is actually really, really solid, and it's a remake. This is The Day of the Jackal. The Jackal is an elusive assassin who makes his living carrying out hits for the highest fee. He soon meets his match in a tenacious British intelligence officer who tracks him down in a thrilling cat and mouse chase across Europe. Starring Eddie Redmayne, Lashana Lynch, Ursula Corbero, Chukwudi Iwuji, Khalid Abdallah, Leah Williams, Eleanor Matsura, Sule Remy, Ben Hall, John Joe O'Neill, Charles Dance, and Nick Blood. Created by Ronan Bennett. Available on Stack TV. Yeah, Stack TV is that extra piece that you buy through your Prime Video account, and that shit just bugs me. So I hope one day it'll become to one of the actual streaming services, because it is a damn good series. I just got renewed for season 2, which seems a bit crazy because both The Jackal and The Day of the Jackal are just singular movies and singular books. So Where exactly this first season leaves off and what the second season would be picking up from is interesting and kind of anybody's call at this point, as far as a viewer. But Eddie Redmayne's so freaking solid in this one. The opening scene has him impersonating a janitor to make a hit, and just the execution of it is so cool. I could watch this kind of stuff all day. I really kind of like these hitman assassin type movies, and Day of the Jackal is one of the OG ones, OG stories of this. And so when this came out, I was really excited because Eddie Redmayne is an Academy Award winning actor, although it probably should have been taken away after Jupiter Ascending. But that aside, he is so good in this one. And Lashana Lynch, who people might remember from No Time to Die, the last Bond movie. She was rumored to be the one that was taking over from Bond, and then every man lost their toxic masculinity brain and just kind of freaked out about it. And even still, as he comments that she ruined the movie, and it's like, buddy, get a grip. But Lashana Lynch is really great. I love the dichotomy of her character, especially watching Lioness as well. And there's kind of a correlation between her and Zoe Saldana's character in that show that I find very fascinating. Running a family while also being a heavily touted operative in a intelligence agency. It's an interesting topic for sure, but I really like Day of the Jackal. I think it has the potential to be a sleeper hit, but the fact that it is on something like Stack TV means that not a lot of people are going to see it until it becomes until it's on Netflix or Crave or Prime Video or something like that, or Disney Plus. It needs to make the move to get more eyeballs, I think, and especially in North America, because I believe it is a hit in the UK. Alrighty, let's move on to the final one for streaming this week. Season 2 of this one has also started. This is Tracker. Coulter Shaw travels the country in his old-school RV, helping police and private citizens solve crimes and locate missing persons, until his latest case changes everything. Starring Justin Hartley, Robin Weggert, Abby McEnany, Eric Grace, and Fiona Renee. Created by Ben H. Winters. Available on Disney Plus. So this is also a series that I believe is currently running on ABC as well. It's a network show that gets the day later addition to Disney Plus. This is basically banking on the hotness of Justin Hartley after This Is Us. And banking on all of the women audience to come and watch a show that is essentially a procedural, like a missing persons wilderness procedural. And I have a hard time getting into it just for that fact, is it doesn't feel like it has enough story from episode to episode to keep me wanting to watch it, keep me engaged in it. It feels like it's got the cliched character, the cliched man, tough man character, that the soft spoken when he needs to be, of Coulter Shaw. He has his team helping him, played by Robin Weggert, and I believe it's Fiona Renee is her partner in this one. And I don't know, I just don't have enough in me to want to continue a paint by numbers procedural, and Tracker doesn't feel like it has enough depth to it than just being a fluff, easy, digestible bedtime watch. Like I don't see it being anything beyond that, beyond background noise, and definitely not something that I feel like I'm going to be talking to people about, oh my God, did you see Tracker? It just doesn't feel like one of those shows. So that's the unfortunate thing. But if you like one of those fluffy, kind of like if you're into the like 911 or Lone Star or any show like that, you might like Jackal. Jackal. You might like Tracker. I'm getting my shows mixed up. You might like Tracker. It might be totally up your alley. Alrighty, so let's move to two shows that I've recently finished in their entirety and hadn't got the chance to talk about them. So that brings this segment. That's right, now that it's over. First up, I just finished all 5 seasons of this, and I have some thoughts about it. This is Star Trek Discovery. 10 years before Kirk, Spock, and the Enterprise, the USS Discovery discovers new worlds and life forms as one Starfleet officer learns to understand all things alien. Starring Sonequa Martin Green, Doug Jones, Shazad Latif, Anthony Rapp, Mary Wiseman, Jason Isaacs, Wilson Cruz, Anson Mount, David Ayala, Rachel Anchiril, Blue Del Barrio, Tig Notaro, and Callum Keith Rennie. Created by Brian Fuller and Alex Kurtman. Available on Paramount Plus. Brian Fuller didn't stay for the full run as a showrunner. He left, I think during the first season, which is arguably the best season of 5. I didn't mention that Michelle Yeoh is in it, but she is, her character is my favorite of the series. And as soon as she was kind of left the show, my interest started to dip a little more. My interest really started to, because I like season 1 a lot. I thought season 1 was solid. I'm not a Trekkie, but I can follow along and I know my things. At my basis, I know the Prime Directive. But season 1 was solid, set up characters really, really well. I love Doug Jones and the fact that even though under a whole bunch of makeup, it still feels like a very Doug Jones character. I love him a lot. And I'm not, I only know Sonequa Martin Green from Walking Dead and the Space Jam sequel, which is terrible. But I thought that she was a very formidable captain in this series. Season 2 started to dip off a bit for me, but it introduced Anson Mount's character, which then went on to the spinoff Strange New Worlds, which apparently is a better show. I need to make my way through that, and then I'll bring that to this show. But season 2 started to lose me a bit and then brought me back. And then season 3, the introduction of Book. And this, I was almost completely out. The season 3 and 4 felt so lackluster to me that I really couldn't get on board with it. And then season 5, bringing in Callum Keith Rennie as Burnham's number 2. I thought was really interesting, and he's such a great actor and such a great performer, and especially as a curmudgeon character, I really dig him. But it never regained any semblance of the awesomeness that was contained in season 1, and it just feels like I was completing it just to complete it. Although I love David Cronenberg, and David Cronenberg acts in this, and his character to me is also very, very interesting. So I was really into that part. All right, so let's move on to my other one. This is a Netflix series that got a lot of hate, and I think it's a lot of anti-trans hate, to be honest. But it's The Umbrella Academy. A family of former child heroes, now grown apart, must reunite to continue to protect the world. Starring Elliot Page, Tom Hooper, David Castaneda, Emmy Raver Lampman, Robert Sheehan, Aidan Gallagher, Colm Feore, Justin H. and Ritu Arya. Created by Steve Blackman. Available on Netflix. And it's based on the comic book by Gerard and Mikey Way from My Chemical Romance. And I love the comic book a lot. And I really loved the series. I really loved what they were doing with it. There's something that feels that it has that same punk rock soul that Gerard and Mikey brought to the original story. I'm pretty sure they were kind of hands-on with the series as well, that I think is very interesting. But I dug this series. I feel like a lot of people fell off it after the first season, because the first season is really, really, really solid and kind of a high bar for the rest of the seasons to kind of go in, to kind of follow. But I feel like 2 and 3 were interesting. 4, I feel like I didn't get enough. It's only 6 episodes, and it just feels like it just whizzes by, and it feels like a quick wrap up and almost like chokes out some stories. I really didn't like them putting they made a a romance in it that I really, really did not like. And I felt like it kind of soured my endpoint feeling on this series. So as a whole, I think it's interesting to watch. If you're a comic book lover, I think it's definitely something to check out, to fill in those gaps. But if you're a comic book lover, I recommend the book. If you haven't read the books, read the books and then decide from there if you want to see an interpretation of it. But I'm also really happy that they included Elliot Page's transition in this and just wrote it in there and made it work. So props to them, props to Netflix for letting that happen, and fuck you to anybody that has a problem with that. All right, we're almost ready to get out of here. I just have a quick reminder. Yeah, that's right. This week's reminder, Alien Romulus is now available on 4K and Blu-ray. This film is so much fun. In theaters, it was awesome to see, so I really recommend grabbing the 4K of this one. And the special features on it are going to be phenomenal because this is a Fede Alvarez film, and he pays attention to stuff like that. He knows that there are collectors out there that want all the bells and whistles contained in their edition. So I'm excited about that. I reviewed this one on the August 23rd episode if you want to get my full thoughts on the actual movie itself. But as far as we're heading into Christmas right now, I highly recommend getting this for any of your sci-fi or horror fans out there. All right, so that moves to what's going on next week. Yeah, it's a weird week. I honestly, I'm not even seeing anything in theaters this week, so I'm having to make a pivot. But luckily, people have been sending me screeners, so I will have the new Ralph Fiennes film, The Return, to talk about. I'll also have the new Frank Grillo actioner, Werewolves. And hopefully, if everything goes the way I want it to, I'll have a review of Nosferatu next week, and that'll probably be the leading film because I'm excited about that one. All right, so that brings us to a close this week. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Steevil-Dead. You can find all of the episodes of this show on stevestebbing.ca, as well as the YouTube page. Just look up Steevil-Dead or Steve Stebbing and you will find this. And you can also find us on shiftheads.ca. You can hear me every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Shane Hewitt and the Night Shift. It's on Toronto's News Talk 1010 on the iHeartRadio, the iHeartRadio network, if I can ever get that one right. And you can also find Chloe's reviews on Letterboxd at the Honeybun Chloe. And that's it for us this week. We've emptied our list, got to fill it up again. So until then, bye-bye.